Hi everyone, welcome to Christmas in July with Joy Clair Stamps. All this week the entire design team is going to be sharing Christmas themed cards, and I have one today for you using the Christmas Cocoa stamp set from Joy Clair. Here's a look at that stamp set. You've got 2 cups in there, so you can use them for hot chocolate, cocoa, you can use them for coffee if it's not Christmas related. Then you've got all these different things you can put. But for my card today, I'm actually going to be using that little cookie up there. And I have used a stamp set before to make these little tags. Just a quick look at those. I didn't get to put them on any gifts last year, so I still had them. I grabbed them out and thought I'd show them here. Now I'm going to be using that cookie like I said. There are a few different things you can use to decorate. I'm just going to be coloring mine in. But you have that little icing swirl, you've got some sprinkles, and I'm going to be pairing this stamp set with the one on the right, which is the 3D Poinsettia. I really love the sentiments in that stamp set, the scriptiness of them. I'll be using Holiday Cheer. I went ahead and grabbed that out, made a mask with that. All I do is stamp it on Ink-a-Dink-a-Doo masking paper. Any masking paper will work, even a post-it note. And then I just cut it out with a little bit of a border, and I have a mask ready to go for my sentiment. I'll be stamping this on a white cardstock rectangle that I die cut. All the supplies that I used on this card will be linked down below as they are in every video. So if you have any questions about ink types or die cuts or the stamp sets, they're all going to be down below. I stamped down that Holiday Cheer sentiment a few times with my mini Misty. I use Versifying Clair Nocturne ink, and then I'll go ahead and mask that off very quickly. This is super simple to do, and it's one of my favorite ways to make one layer cards. I've got some videos coming up that are one layer cards, so I thought I would go ahead and share that with you. But I masked that off very quickly with that mask, and then I'm going to start stamping around those cookies all the way around. This is a great way to just fill up a background. Pick any stamp you want. You could use those cups, you could use anything. You could use the flowers, the 3D poinsettias, and you could build those up around the Holiday Cheer sentiment. But I'm going to make this cookie my main focal point here. I'm using that same Versifying Clair Nocturne ink. I am using this because it plays well with my coloring medium, which are the Leisure Arts colored pencils, and I'll be blending those out with some OMS. I have a video on this ink. I'll leave that linked up in the top right hand corner. It is a video that shows exactly what mediums work with this ink and how well they work, and a few tips and tricks too when you're working with this ink. I stamped that cookie repeatedly to fill up that background, leaving that mask in place, and then I can go ahead and remove that mask, and that sentiment is completely covered. It's got a nice border around it, so none of the stamp lines go right up to it. I just find that that helps a little bit whenever you're trying to read the sentiment. If you go right up to the lines, it can get a little bit lost and look a little bit funky, so I like to leave that border. Now for this background, I'm going to be using a few colored pencils. These are from Leisure Arts. I have a review on these. Again, I'll leave that linked in the top right hand corner if you're interested in watching it. I'm only going to be using 5 colors. I have red, green, brown, a very light brown that I'll be using for the cookie, and then I'll be using 2 different colors of blue for the entire background around the cookies. I like to use OMS to blend out my colored pencils. I just find that works best for me. These blend beautifully on their own, and you can make a quicker background that way. However, it doesn't take much time to add in this OMS, and it works so beautiful. So I like to go in and add color in my darkest areas. Then I come in with my blending stump with OMS, and I just blend that color out. If I need a little bit more, I can always go back in. Even still, while the OMS is wet, it doesn't hurt your colored pencils at all. Also, whenever you're using OMS, it looks a little bit wet at first, but that dissipates rather quickly, and it leaves behind kind of a flawless finish. It's gorgeous. I'm switching up how I color in these cookie icings. Some of them I'm using green, and some of them I'm using red. Another thing I love about using the OMS with colored pencils is you can use one color and get like 3 different shades. So I'm using one green color here, and that's all I'm using to blend this out and make 3 different shades. I've got some shadow, I've got some highlights, all in those icings of cookies, and I just love that it's so easy and you can get by with so few pencils. Now I'm starting off with the cookies closest to the sentiment, and that was because I wanted to be sure and leave a little bit of area around the sentiment. I'll come in and do some work on that sentiment later to kind of make it stand out and pop away from that, but I wanted to leave a little bit of white area around there. So I started off with those, and then I'm going to quickly fill in. And also, before I go on, that also made it easier for me to get down kind of the layout of what colors I wanted to use where. So it's not a bunch of green and a bunch of red right next to each other. Using two colors, you're going to get that on a background, but I tried to space it out as much as I could by doing it that way. Once I had the icing all colored in, I wanted to go ahead and put a little bit of a blue tint around all of these cookies. So I'm using a light blue colored pencil, and then I'll go ahead and come in with a darker blue here in just a moment. But I want to blend this out first, and I'm using a larger blending stump just to get this to spread out a little more. I'm also using quite a bit of OMS to spread this out. I'll dip in quite a few times. The more you put on there, you don't want to put too much on at once, but if you go in layer after layer and kind of let that OMS sit for a minute, you can get it to blend out more. So like I said, I'm going to come in with a darker blue, just in very, very lightly where it would be the darkest, and this is just going to add a tad bit more depth, and it just helps the lighter blue kind of stand out a little bit more and really help with that background. It kind of brings it to life. You could leave it without the blue if you're not comfortable doing this around all your little cookies, or if you just wanted to make this a little bit of a quicker card, you could leave that out, but I think it adds so much, so I like to leave it in there. I'm switching to a little bit smaller of a blending stump. This way it doesn't go quite as far as the lighter blue did, plus I don't want to lose all of that out into the blending, so I'm using a smaller blending stump for this one and a little bit less OMS. Now looking at this, I thought the sentiment was starting to get a little bit lost. So I'm going to use a gray colored pencil just on the right side of all the thicker lines, and I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow. This is super simple to do. You just put a little line of color and then you blend it out very lightly. You don't need to do a ton of blending here. Just soften it up a little bit, and anywhere you think it needs a little bit more, you can go back in and add that. That just adds a little bit of a drop shadow to it and kind of brings the sentiment to life. Now to finish the front of the card off, I just put down a craft panel that is the mat to that rectangle that I did all my stamping and coloring, and I put everything down with double-sided adhesive so it's nice and flat. No dimension on this. I wanted to put a little bit of sparkle on those cookies, so I brought out my Stella clear glitter brush pen. This is refilled with water, and it started to move the color and kind of soften it up on the icing on my cookies, which I loved the effect of. So I thought that was a pretty neat little happy accident there. And I refilled this with water. I have a video on that. I'll leave that linked in the top right hand corner as well. But I just quickly did a coat of that over all the cookies, and there you can see a little bit of that shimmer there. The video doesn't do it justice. I promise it sparkles more in real life. Here's a final look at the outside of the card. Very simple, very easy to do, and super quick. And if you love to color, this is the card for you to do, because that's basically all it is. You've got 2 die cuts, some stamping, and a whole lot of coloring. On the inside of the card though, I wanted to finish this off, and I'm going to use that same stamp set that I used, the Christmas Cocoa. I'm building up the sentiment Warmest Wishes. So on the outside it says Holiday Cheer, and then I'll add a little and sign above the warmest, just quickly drawing that in with my micron pen, and it'll say and Warmest Wishes on the inside. I'm going to stamp that coffee cup, and I quickly wiped off the top of that so I could add some little whipped cream inside that with the stamp set that's also included in the stamp set. So I inked that up. I'm using the same VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. Stamp that right on top, and then it's got that little opening, and that is for these little candy canes. So I'll go ahead and stamp a candy cane right to the left there. And I let this ink dry. I actually had to go pick up groceries, so I went and picked up groceries, did some errands, did some running around. So this sat for a good few hours, and then I came back and it was time to color. But before I colored, I'm going to go ahead and draw in that and sign. I just used my micron pen and drew this in very quickly. Super simple. That way it says holiday cheer and warmest wishes instead of just like 2 block sentiments. It kind of goes together. Like I said, I let that stamping sit for a good, it had to be at least 3 or 4 hours, and then I came in. I didn't want to take my heat gun to the pigment ink just because I didn't want to get any warping. I always have warping whenever I go in with my heat gun, and I didn't want that on this card. So I just let it sit and dry on its own. Then I came in with my colored pencils and my OMS, and I'm going to color this up very quickly using some of the colors I used on the outside. So I'm using green on the coffee cup. I'll use some red on that little peppermint candy cane, and I use some grays on the whipped cream just to add a little bit of depth and dimension. I know whipped cream's normally white, but it just adds a little something to it so it doesn't look stark white. I also had a little smudge of ink, so I quickly got that away with a sanding block. I've got a video on that. Again, top right hand corner if I have the space. Added a little drop shadow under that with a gray colored pencil, and that finished off the entire card. Super simple and easy to do, and I love the way it turned out. This would be a great card to stamp a ton of and then take them with you like on a road trip or to a practice for your kids where you're just sitting there and something like that, and just sit and color on these. It really is a portable type of card that you could work on anywhere, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I want to thank you guys so much for watching today. As always, there are going to be a few links on the left side of your screen you can click on. If you enjoyed the video, you can always click the like button down below, and if you aren't subscribed yet, you can do that on the left hand side as well. Happy crafting, everyone.